Are you ready to make your very own favorite summer dress? My name is Iben, and in this video I'll show you how I sew the solsikke pattern from Beklaedt. With this sewing pattern you can make a simple and flattering summer dress that can be styled in all sorts of different ways. The dress has a self-lined fitted bodice, complemented by a lovely generously gathered skirt with deep pockets. The straps are made as thin spaghetti straps that tie at the back, so you can adjust the length yourself. But would you like to hear the best part? The pattern is completely and utterly free. Just head over to Beklaedt.com and sign up to the newsletter, and you will receive an exclusive discount code which you can use to get the PDF pattern completely free of charge. I've made this video as beginner friendly as possible, as the sewing project is really well suited to those just starting out. Right then, shall we get going? The dress works best with a woven fabric of light to medium weight quality. In this example I'm using some lovely bed linen from a charity shop, which is 100% jacquard woven cotton. The fabric feels smooth and soft, but still has a little bit of structure, which helps to give the skirt some volume. In addition to fabric, you'll also need appropriate sewing machine needles and matching thread. And I also recommend stabilizing the neckline and armhole with a 2 cm wide stay tape. I suggest you have the following tools in your sewing kit: dressmaking pins, hand sewing needles, tailor's chalk, a tape measure, a good pair of fabric scissors, and a seam ripper, because even the best seamstress makes mistakes. It's also a really good idea to have a ruler close by. And of course, we'll need a good sewing machine as well as an ironing board and iron. For making the thin spaghetti straps, a rouleau turner is by far the easiest option. But if you don't have one, there are other methods. In some of my other videos I show alternative techniques. I've made a short video where I demonstrate the different approaches. Brilliant! I think we're ready. The first step is to cut out the pattern pieces following the cutting guide. The seam allowance is already included in the pattern pieces, so you can simply cut directly along the lines. Fold the fabric in half so the fold aligns with the grain line. The grain runs along the length of the fabric, parallel to the selvages. If you're using bed linen, the grain runs along the length of the sheet, and the selvages will be the 2 long side seams. Why does it matter to follow the grain? Because if the pattern pieces are placed off grain, the garment will pull and hang unevenly on the body. Don't forget to cut the 2 long fabric strips on the bias as well. These will be used to make the straps. The strips should be between 90 to 120 cm long and 2 cm wide, depending on the size you're making. Once the pattern pieces are cut out, press the stay tape along the neckline and armhole of the front bodice piece that will end up as the lining. Place the tape on the fabric with the glue side facing towards the wrong side and press firmly with medium heat. Do the same on the back lining piece. Press the stay tape along the top edge of the back piece. Now we need to sew the bust darts on the front bodice pieces. Find one of the front pieces and lay it flat on the table with the wrong side facing up. Place the paper pattern piece on top and mark the position of the dart with pins. 1 pin in each leg of the dart and 1 at the apex. Fold the fabric right sides together so that the 2 legs of the dart lie on top of one another. Pin in place. I recommend marking the dart with a chalk line so you have something to sew along. Sew the dart. Start at the side seam and remember to backstitch at the beginning. Sew down towards the apex. Stitch all the way to the edge, stop, and pull the fabric out, leaving a long trail of thread. Do the same on the other side. Rather than backstitching at the apex, you can tie a knot on the thread instead. This makes it easier to achieve a neat-looking dart. Repeat on the other front piece. Press the dart upwards towards the neckline with the iron. Whether you press the dart up or down is a matter of preference, but on this pattern it should be pressed upwards. Now let's make the straps. Find the 2 long strips and fold each one in half lengthwise, right sides together. Stitch along the center of the folded strip. Insert the rouleau turner into one end of the tube and feed it all the way through to the other opening. The turner should catch a small amount of fabric at the edge. Pull it back so that the fabric is turned right side out. It can be a little tricky to get started as the fabric tends to bunch up, but once you're underway, it goes quite quickly. If it all gets a bit hopeless, you can make the straps another way. Fold the strip in half lengthwise, wrong sides together, and press it flat with the iron. Open it out and fold each side in by 5 mm towards the wrong side so that both edges meet at the center crease. Fold in half again along the center so the strip is now 5 mm wide and press once more. Stitch the tape closed with a line of stitching as close to the edge as possible. From the long straps, cut 2 short pieces approximately 5 cm long. These will be used to make the loops on the back piece. Fold each piece in half and position the loop by the notch on the outer back piece, right sides together, so the loop points inwards and the 2 ends aligns with the edge. Stitch the loop in place with a small line of stitching approximately 5 mm from the edge. In the same way, place the 2 long straps on top of the outer front piece, right sides together, so that one end of each strap aligns with the pointy end on the front piece. Stitch in place approximately 5 mm from the edge. Find the outer front and back bodice pieces. Place them on top of one another, right sides together, and pin along the 2 side seams.
Although it's very nice, in my space I feel most comfortable. Choose what you like, choose your people, choose your time, choose to be vibrant, choose to feel yourself, choose to transcend, choose to be your own friend.
Stitch the side seams with a 1 cm seam allowance, then press the seam open with the iron.
They will come, they will come. Like the
the same for the bodice in lining. Lay the outer bodice flat on the table with the right side facing inward. Find the bodice in lining and place it inside the other so the two pieces are right sides together. Match the pieces up so the side seams align, then pin all the way around the neckline.
Like the sun, like the sun. There will be everything, everything.
Stitch the two bodices together with a 1 cm seam allowance.
You say you need your space, then pull me close. I read your silence, louder than most. One day you're warm, the next day you're cold. Got me second guessing what I already know. I give you love, but you ration yours. You open up just to close the door. I stay up late, trying to read your mind. I can't read your mind, but your love for rules that change all the time. Why are you always halfway in? Got me drowning when I know I could swim.
Trim the seam allowance down around the two straps on the front piece so that it is only a few millimeters wide. Also snip into the seam allowance along the curved edges at the armholes and neckline.
So why you always halfway in? You hit me up when the nights get slow, but then disappear when the highs get low.
With the right side facing up, understitch the seam allowance to the lining a few millimeters from the edge all the way around. This stitch ensures a neat neckline. It won't be possible to stitch all the way to the very point where the two straps sit on the front piece, so start and stop your stitching a couple of centimeters away from each strap.
I can't read your mind, but your love for rules that change all the time. Changing all the time. Why are you always halfway in? Got me drowning when I know I could swim. If you love me, baby, say it with your chest. Yeah, tired of the maybes, I just want the yes. Don't play me like a song on spin. If you ride for me, then ride to the end. Don't wanna love this paper thin. So why you always halfway in? Why you always halfway in? Got me drowning when I know I could swim. If you love me, baby, say it with your chest. Yeah, tired of the maybes, I just want the yes. Don't play me like a song on spin. If you ride for me, then ride to the end. Don't wanna love this paper thin. So why you always halfway in?
Now let's finish the skirt. Find the 4 pocket pieces and finish the raw edges with an overlock or zigzag stitch to prevent fraying. Finish the 2 side edges of each skirt panel in the same way. Lay one skirt panel flat on the table with the right side facing up. As you can see, I've marked the pocket placement on the fabric according to the paper pattern. Find one pocket bag and place it on top of the skirt, right sides together, so that the straight edge of the pocket aligns with the side seam of the skirt and the pocket bag sits correctly in relation to the markings. You'll notice that the markings on the skirt don't account for the seam allowance on the pocket. This is intentional. We're going to sew the pocket bag to the skirt with a stitch that starts 1 cm from the raw edge of the pocket and likewise stops 1 cm before the raw edge. Press the seam allowance from the pocket and the skirt towards the pocket. With the right side facing up, understitch the seam allowance to the pocket a few millimeters from the edge. It's important to start and stop your stitching 2 to 3 centimeters from the raw edge of the pocket. Repeat for the remaining pocket bags. Lay one skirt panel flat on the table with the right side facing up. Place the other panel on top, right sides together, so that the pieces align along the side seam. Pin along the side seam. Stitch down to the point where the pocket is attached to the skirt.
Feel the breeze taking the sides. Hand in hand through the streets of
In the same way, the side seam below the pocket should start precisely where the pocket ends.
candlelight. Maybe we could take the train to London. I've got some real good friends out there.
Stitch the side seams of the skirt with a 1 cm seam allowance.
Our love can take us anywhere. We should fly right over the sea. Take my hand to another land, girl, just you and me. Breakfast here and dinner there, we flow with the breeze. We can do this anywhere, never place you wanna see. Yeah. Few days in Tokyo.
Now sew the pocket bags together along the curved edge. As before, your seam should begin right where the skirt's side seam ends. I place a pin at these points, both at the top and the bottom of the pocket bag. Stitch the pocket with a 1 cm seam allowance.
Few days in Tokyo, weekend in Spain. Out there on the pizza, chilling all day with your feet up. Don't matter where we go, always stays the same. I got you and you got me, girl. That'll never change. That'll never change. That'll never change. That'll never change.
Bring the skirt to the ironing board and press the seam allowances open. Now we need to make a gathering stitch along the top of the skirt. This is done by making 2 parallel rows of stitching within the seam allowance a few millimeters apart. Use a stitch length of 4 and do not backstitch at either end. Gently pull on the bobbined thread with one hand while the other hand holds onto the skirt fabric, creating gathers that draw the skirt in. The aim is to gather the skirt until its circumference matches the circumference of the bodice. Once you got the right circumference, tie off the threads, then pin the skirt to the bodice, right sides together. Remember to match the side seams. Stitch the skirt to the bodice all the way around with a 1 cm seam allowance. Make sure you're happy with the seam, then finish the raw edge with an overlock or zigzag stitch. Press the seam allowance from the skirt towards the bodice. While the right side is facing up, top stitch the seam allowance from the skirt to the bodice a couple of millimeters from the edge. All that's left now is to hem the bottom of the skirt. Bring the dress to the ironing board and press the hemline 2 cm to the wrong side all the way around. Then press the hemline another 2 cm to the wrong side.
It all feels like it's closing
With the right side facing up, stitch the hem in place from the right side approximately 2 cm from the edge. If you find it really tricky to sew from the right side, where you can't see the folded hem, you can turn it over and sew from the wrong side instead. That said, it's good practice to sew from the right side. Because the right side is the side that will be visible in the end, that's where your visible stitching should come from. Brilliant! Well done! The dress is finished. I hope you've sewn yourself a really lovely summer dress. You're more than welcome to share photos and videos of the finished dress on Instagram. Just remember to tag @Beklaedt Sewing. Thank you so much for watching.